All right, I'm going to share my screen. Oh, I've moved everything. There it is. There it is. I'm not sure why it's not showing up. All right, let's get this all the way back at the beginning. There it is. And let's get it in present mode. Yes, here we are. All right. We are looking at how you register voters. Virginia calls it third party voter registration, and we get this done in Virginia. Now, why are you here? Because you individually or your organization wants to host what Virginia calls a voter registration drive, and you are planning on requesting 25 or more voter registration applications, or you might be printing them. It doesn't matter how you get them, but you're planning on registering 25 or more people. Now, in Virginia, if the General Assembly passes a new law regarding voting, that new law goes into effect on July 1st. And what they've done with voter registration certification is your certification, regardless of when you get it, expires on June 30th because new laws will go into effect on July 1. So today you will be taking the training to be certified to register voters in Virginia. We'll be back next year doing the same thing. Now, what am I going to be covering? Election terms. We'll look at the sworn affidavit, the qualifications to register to vote, restoration of rights. We're going to go through the application in detail. What IDs do people need? Important things to remember. And we really emphasize what you are not to do during voter registration because most of the things, if you do them, are classified felonies. We don't want to go there. And then we'll have questions that people frequently ask. Now, because we are a small group, I am going to invite you to ask questions as we go through. So there are terms that the Board of Elections wants everybody to know. When we mention state and voter registration, we are referring to the Commonwealth of Virginia. When we are looking at election information and they talk about a locality, they mean a city or an individual county. The general registrar is the office slash person that maintains the official voter registration records for a locality. They are sometimes referred to as directors of elections. Voter registration is the process that people need to go through in order to be able to vote slash participate in a Virginia election. Now, the sworn affidavit is what you will complete at the end of this training, saying you understand who you can register, who you can't register, what you legally can do, and legally what you must not do. And then elect is basically the Virginia Department of Elections. Periodically, they refer to themselves as elect. Now, two last terms. The General Registrar's Office, and all 133 Virginia counties have one, is the local city or county voter registration office. And in 2025, the Virginia Beach voter registration office moved. So we had to make a point in our phone banks to make sure people knew, hey, the voter registration office, it is now over here. It's moved. we will all be certified individuals slash organizations. These are people who have completed the training through Elect to conduct third party voter registration drives in Virginia. That will be us. All right. Now, the goal of Elect, if they make me do this. All right. Elections in Virginia, the goal is to ensure they are trustworthy, that they are accessible, that they are accountable, that they are secure, and that they are verified. That is the goal of the Virginia Board of Elections. And unfortunately, I'm sorry to say that is not the goal of all state board of elections, but it is in Virginia. Now, when you do a voter registration drive, you have two key functions. Number one, register the voter. And number two, turn in the completed voter registration applications. Now, when you're hosting a voter registration drive, you may, if you're at a table, at an event, approach and introduce yourself and the organization that you represent. One of the things that I do is I always on my phone have a link so that people can check the status of their voter registration. So I don't generally ask people if they want to register to vote because people will say, I'm registered. I will ask people, is your voter registration up to date? And then people start thinking about it, and it's like, let's check and make sure that it's active. A lot of times it will be, but there will be a number of times when it will either be inactive or people will realize they're registered at an old address. So, very, very important to check. And I normally suggest that people review their voter registration status at least every 3 or 4 months to make sure you don't deliberately or accidentally get removed from the
Love
voter
you.
rolls. Now, in Virginia, you can get back on fairly easily. Now, you're going to explain the qualifications to vote. That number one, they've got to be a resident, they've got to be a United States citizen, and they've got to be a resident of Virginia. So we can't register people who might be visiting people from another state. They have to be Virginia is my home. Now, the next important thing is who is going to submit the application? Is the voter going to just take the form and they're basically going to self-register? Or is the voter going to give it to you and it will be your job to submit the application? And then, if it is your job to submit the application, you have to make sure you give the voter a receipt. Now, if the voter says, well, I don't have time today, isn't there online registration? The answer is yes. But I normally make it a point of telling people who want to register online, do you have a Virginia driver's license? Because if you do, yes, you can do the whole registration online. If you don't, the end of the process, they're going to say, great, now let's print the form and mail it in. All right. And we already talked about if you're responsible, you're going to need to give the voter a receipt. Questions so far? This part is like really straightforward. People are going, yeah, this is the same every year. I know. Now,
And the receipt's at
if
the bottom of the registration form.
exactly right, it's at the bottom. And later on, when we look at the receipt, I normally suggest that organizations print labels where it's got the name of your organization, your website, your phone number, all that stuff where, hey, we are the people who registered this voter. Now, if you are responsible for delivering the applications, you must deliver them within 10 days of when the application was signed. So you can't sit on them for like 20 or 30 days waiting to gather up a bunch of applications. You need to submit them within 10 days. Now, if we are close to the close of voter registration, then you need to submit them by 5 p.m. on the date of the registration deadline. And then you can also take them to the local registrar, or you can always deliver them directly to elect at 1100 Bank Street. Now, this is important. If you're going great guns with voter registration, when you realize you've got more than 20, please deliver them. We really don't want you showing up with 300 voter registration forms the day that voter registration closes. So we really want those forms to come in as you get them. Now, if you have a great day and it's the day before voter registration closes, okay, that can't be helped. But if you can, try to make sure you're not delivering hundreds of forms at the same time. Now, what is really, really nice, and your registrars will really, really like you, as opposed to, we never want to see these people again, is take your voter registration forms and provide an alphabetical listing of your applicants and then have the forms in that order. That's what we do. All right, now, when you are registering voters, number one, confirm that the individual is a US citizen. That is the very first question on the form, and that must be answered yes. If they don't say yes, the application is automatically a no-go. Then confirm that they are a Virginia resident and make sure they are not already a registered voter in Virginia. Or if they are a registered voter, if their registration is inactive, then they need to re-register. Or if, oh, I don't live there anymore, that's right, we moved 4 months ago, then they need to update their voter registration. Now, the applicant themselves must complete the voter registration. Ask them to write neatly and accurately. So when I manually had to do my voter registration, and I've done a couple, it took forever because normally I can't read my own handwriting, which is why I don't do postcards. But oh well. We already talked about they're going to get a receipt showing this is the organization that took their voter registration application. So when they check after 10 days, am I on the registered voter list? Is my voter registration staying active? And they're like, well, wait a minute. I talked to those people at Liberal Women at Chesterfield. They were out registering voters. I wonder what happened. Let me go get my receipt and call them. And voters will call. All right. Now, this is a biggie. Don't pre-populate anything on the registration form. And I mean anything. Don't go on your form and print in VA. Yet they live in Virginia, but the applicant is supposed to complete the form on their own unless they specifically ask for your assistance. All right. And then don't intentionally submit or solicit multiple applications from one person or try to re-register people whose registration information is active and current. Now, why are all these don'ts in here? Because at some point in time, Virginia has prosecuted people who did these things. Um, don't give a voter false information regarding the voter's registration status. So if you check and it says active and their address is correct, they're good to go. Don't tell them they need to re-register. And then let's see what else. Don't provide or accept applications from anyone that you know is ineligible to vote. So, in other words, someone that you know lives in another state, anybody say Tommy Tuberville, Florida, Alabama, but they are registering to vote in your state, and you know you're passing through, you don't live here. And then don't provide, oh, I already did that one. Sorry, I copied that twice. And then if you are talking to someone and they tell you they have a felony conviction and their rights have not restored, and as I said, this just got trickier. If they're non-citizens or non-Virginia residents, don't invite them to register to vote. Now, if a person has a felony conviction, now we're going to need to ask what the felony was. So if it was a felony in 1870, and all the big obvious ones were, so rape, murder, robbery, all those big things, yes, those were crimes in 1870. If someone was arrested and has a felony for drug sales, that was not a felony in 1870. So now we're looking at a whole nother situation. They don't need to get their rights restored. They technically need to get that felony removed from their public record. And then here's one last thing. Don't let the voter walk away until you've reviewed what they've written on their form, because by law, you cannot make changes or alter it in any way. If the voter did not check they were a US citizen, you cannot legally check it for them. All right, we already did that. And yes, I already said, look carefully at the application when they give it to you, maybe go over it with them. Everything is good to go. I have occasionally had people who started to walk away and they did not check that I am a US citizen. That is an automatic, they are not even going to consider it. Don't discriminate. And again, race, religion, political party. So the guy shows up in the Duck Dynasty outfit and he's talking to you about his love of Trump, and he just moved into the area and he wants to register. Grit your teeth, quietly go la 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 silently to yourself and register that voter. You cannot discriminate. And this is the biggie. Virginia unlawfully uses the full Social Security number when you register to vote. Do not misuse or in any way, shape, or form share that very private privacy piece of information. So, unauthorized use of any personal information to defraud, that is definitely a crime. And fraud was a crime in 1870. So let's not go there. We're not supposed to bribe, coerce, or do anything else to force people to register to vote. This is going to be a big thing in this upcoming election. Don't write or attach anything to the voter registration application related to candidates or ballot measures. So we have got three constitutional amendments on the ballot, not to mention our federal candidates. Your voter registration form is something that you give them. You cannot clip that other information to it. You can hand it to them separately, but they cannot be together as a packet. Um, yeah. And then the incredibly obvious one, don't solicit or accept money or anything of value to get a person to register to vote. All right, now, okay, now we know what we're not doing. Who can actually register? They've got to be a US citizen, they've got to be a resident of Virginia. They must be 18 years or older on or before the next general election. So we can register 17-year-olds whose birthday will be on or before November 3rd, and our primary is over. But you also, if you register a 17-year-old who will be 18 by the time of the general, they are lawfully able to vote in the primary. The primary is over and done. Now, the person must also not be adjudicated to lack mental capacity to understand the act of voting, and that is currently adjudicated by a court, not your wife, not your best friend, not your brother in law saying you're crazy. It must be a court. Now, here's the big new change. If convicted of a felony recognized as common law in 1870, the individual's right to vote must have been restored after their most recent felony conviction. Now, a felony conviction, a judge says you are guilty of this felony, and pending charges are not the same thing. If someone has pending charges, but they have not yet been convicted, ethnically, they are eligible to vote. So we have a team of people who register people in the jails. If their sentencing date or court date is after the election, and they only have pending charges, even if that pending charge is a felony, they are by law eligible to vote. Now, there is a very long list, mercifully in alphabetical order, of everything that was a felony in 1870. And so if a person has committed any of those crimes, they must have their rights restored and they must go through restoration of rights. If the crime is not on that list, then they will be looking to do the version of expungement that they came up with to address new crimes. When Virginia was readmitted to the Union in 1870, one of the criteria for Virginia's readmission was that they would not create any new felonies because they were concerned about Virginia making up new felonies to prevent newly enfranchised Black men from being able to vote. So that is why, and Richard Walker, bless his heart, noticed that and was one of the people who brought that original lawsuit. Now, resident of Virginia, who is really a resident? Now, there are two things. Number one, um, the person must have an intention to remain in a given area. And number two, there must be a physical place where they dwell so that we can figure out what their legislative districts are. So, do you intend to stay here? And this really impacts students and homeless. And if you are intending to stay, where do you dwell? So, two things we have to consider in those special circumstances. A college student may register to vote based on his or her intention to return home after college. So they're living in, currently going to school in Georgia, but they want to register in Virginia because they plan to return to Virginia. Or you have students in college who plan to remain in the area to continue to go to school. Now, the registration address is what is going to be used by the registrar to determine their district, their federal district, their state districts. Now, when we are working with incarcerated individuals, they are entitled to use their home address to register to vote. What many southern states did, or what many localities did, is if a person was in prison, then the prison address was what was used, which is why so many little counties have these incredibly big, expensive, and elaborate courthouses and libraries. They counted the people in their jail or prisons as residents, as opposed to allow them to still be listed as residents wherever they were from. Now, student addresses, and we had a problem with this last year. Now, as long as the student's address will allow the registrar to figure out their districts and their precincts, that address is sufficient. The registrars may not reject college student voter registration applications because they didn't provide a dormitory residence hall room number, campus mailbox number, or any of that information. When it is required so they can get mail, then that is all they need to put on their voter registration form. We had a number of rural, red-ish areas where they were rejecting student voter registrations. So now they have come out and said, look, you cannot reject it because they didn't put the residence hall, dormitory, or other information like that. So as long as we can identify their precinct, we can establish residency, they're good to go. Now, pre-registration. Pre-registration says that high school students, or even if they're not students, that are 16 and 17-year-old Virginia residents may pre-register. They cannot vote, but they can pre-register so that when they reach 18 years of age, they are automatically registered to vote and they will be good to go. So it says here, this does not entitle 16 and 17-year-olds to vote in any election. Remember, the one differentiation is if a person is 17 but will be 18 on or by election day. And then they really want to emphasize they can't vote in any election. The registrar will process their form when they become eligible. And now restoration of rights again. So we already referenced this. Any person who says, I have a felony conviction, they should go to restore.virginia.gov and look to see have their rights already been restored. And if they have not been convicted of a new felony, they are eligible to vote, to register to vote right then and there. So when you go to restore.virginia.gov, you can do two things. Number one, check the status of your civil rights. And if their rights have been restored, there will be a restoration date. We still find people whose rights were restored in 2016 and they didn't know. So again, sometimes people move around. They go and live in a totally different region of the state from where they were when they committed a felony. Their mail doesn't find them, so they never get their restoration notice. Now, if their rights have not been restored and they have committed one of the common law crimes from 1870, then right there on that same site, they can submit a request that their rights be restored. And I understand Governor Spanberger has currently restored over 66,000 people in Virginia. And then Gail asked a question very early on. What happens when the Restoration of Right Amendment passes? What will probably happen is there will be tens of thousands, maybe 100,000 or more people who just didn't get the memo. And when you talk to them about is their registration up to date, they're going to say, I can't vote, I'm a felon. What would be really great in 2027 is you can say that doesn't matter. You are now able to register and vote. If you are talking to me and you are not behind bars, you are out of prison, then your rights have been restored. Because if you get a job, they are going to take taxes out of your pay. So if you are paying taxes, you have the right to vote on how those taxes are being used. This is basically, or what we went through is basically most of the class. Everyone will be able to get a copy of this where there are links to online voter registration forms that you'll be able to print. And all the forms are available normally in Spanish and Vietnamese. So this document is there. All right, now the voter registration application itself. Notice the very first question, I am a citizen of the United States. The voter must say yes. The full social security number, and they are not kidding, they want all digits, not just the last four. In the event no social security number was ever issued, they can check this box. Date of birth and then gender. Now, gender, Virginia does still kind of expect male or female. That's going to make it a lot easier than people putting in other things. Last name, Is there a suffix, first name, middle name? And notice middle name is a required field. If they do not have a middle name, my sister did not have a middle name, they have to check none. Otherwise, this is a required field. This would be a rejection. Resident address. This is what is going to be used to determine what are their legislative districts. So if you're working with a homeless person and they live under the 3rd Street Bridge at this intersection and that one, that basically is an address where we can say, well, if this is where they are residing, then they are in this congressional district. Email is not required. Phone number is not required. However, zip code is. Now, this is the interesting part. Have you ever been convicted of a felony or judged mentally incapacitated and disqualified to vote? If they say yes, then realistically they should circle which one it is. Is it a felony conviction or have they been judged mentally incapacitated? And then, if yes, has your right to vote been restored? And this should be yes. All right. And then I just made a little sample here. So this is what that top part, the first 3 sections should look like, except this down here, item number 3, these should both be no. All right, so we would expect those to be no. People must answer question number 3. It's yes, no, not maybe. So they've got to pick one. Now, this is the part where it gets in. Oh, Gail.
Yeah, so I'm still confused. For that group of people who were convicted of felonies like drug charges that were thrown out in that lawsuit, are they a yes now automatically? Or it's still, we don't know.
That's the part that's still really squidgy. So we have a person who does a lot of work on this. She didn't get back to me tonight, but I will ask her again, what should people, if they have drug charges, what should they put here? Or are we telling people that they need to first go to the clerk of their court, file their paperwork, and when they get it back, come back and register? So that's gone back and forth. There have been no, don't say yes, because you're not going to get your rights restored. They're going to overturn or basically expunge the felony. This was not clearly thought out and the protocols established. So some communities are saying, oh, do it like this. We are working to we want one procedure that works in all 133 counties. We don't want this one does this and that one does that. No. So I will work on getting an answer for you on that tonight.
Thank you.
Yes. Now, there are people who can or must put in their real address so that we can reckon what their district is. However, they are allowed to use a post office box on all official communication from the Board of Elections. And their post office box would appear on any voter file listing. And that includes anyone who is active duty uniformed services member, spouse, or dependent, or an overseas citizen. It also is for law enforcement. It is for elected officials. If you have people where there has been a protective order and they don't want people finding their address out through the voter file, this also applies to people who are homeless. So, generally, if people are homeless, they may be going to a food bank. I know our Lynchburg Democracy Center is a food bank, and people who are homeless are allowed to receive their mail there. So the Board of Elections on these lines wants to know, where do we send their official voting correspondence? Now, they do want the post office box to be in Virginia. All right, so that's the main thing. Or you're in the final one, you're in the witness protection program. Um, Number 5 is obvious. I am currently registered to vote in another state. If so, what state? Elect will cancel your registration in the other state, and then they will register you in Virginia. And item number 6, let me just move that. I'm interested in being an officer of election poll worker on election day. Right. And I just went through all those items. So again, it is listed here. And they say if they are using a post office box, it's preferable that is in the locality, city or county, where they reside. And then here is the information on if you are registering people who are homeless. All right, and let's see. Right, and we've already gone through what the protected classifications are. They're all listed right there in section 4. And then finally, when we get down to the signature, if your applicant is disabled and they cannot sign, and you have been assisting them in filling out the form, then they can direct you to check the box. I am a person with disabilities. I have physical disabilities. Then that allows them to basically mark an X, print their name, whatever it is they can do, or you can print it for them, and then today's date. All right. And then finally, at the very bottom is the voter registration application. And I made a sample. All right, there's one. All right, Andrea Miller, Center for Common Ground. That's me. My phone number, I could have put my email address on. And then this is for the Caroline County Registrar. So the registrar's name, their address, and then their phone number. If the voter has any questions about, I registered with Andrea Miller's Center for Common Ground. It's been a month and I still don't seem to be registered. This is who they can go directly to and find out, have they received the registration? Was there a problem? This is really what a good receipt looks like. Other questions? We'll keep going. Now, you've done all that. You've got the signed voter registration in your hand. All right. Now, there are two ways that you can submit the application. Number one, the applicant can say, you know what, I'll just take it to the registrar myself. This individual does not get a receipt because you are not turning in the voter registration on their behalf. If, however, you or your organization is going to deliver it, then they will need to get a receipt. And preferably, you will deliver the voter registrations either directly to elect. Let's say you've got people from 8 counties and reasonably Chesterfield, Enrico, Richmond. You go, I'm willing to take a day and run around to those registrars. Or maybe you're going, I'm going to take them all to elect and I'm going to let elect sort through them. Realistically, the registration should go to the local jurisdiction where people are residing. Otherwise, bring it to elect. Yes, I say everything twice. I say it really short, and then there's a very long-winded version of what I just said. Yes, deliver to the appropriate local voter registration office. Again, within 10 days of the signature date or 5 p.m. the day of the registration deadline, whichever is sooner. Okay, now we've got some best practices. I've already gone through these, so I will move through this rather quickly. Best practice: confirm the individual is a U.S. citizen and a Virginia register. Make sure they're not already registered. Have the person complete the application accurately and neatly so that the registrar can read it, and then give them the receipt so they know who you were and they know what registrar is ultimately going to be receiving their application. And so if you need to look it up, you're in Richmond and suddenly here is somebody that is registering to vote and they are from Staunton, and you're going, I normally don't see people from Stanton. This is where you can go and find out who is the registrar in Stanton, and you can put that on there. Voters have to get a receipt. You have to turn in the registration. You are not going to mark, change, or delete any information. If something is wrong, that's why you're reviewing it while the voter is standing there. The voter can make an adjustment. You will not destroy or dispose of any completed applications, and you will not copy or otherwise distribute the Social Security number from the application. Again, they get a receipt, you're turning them in, you're not marking, changing, or destroying or disposing. You're reading the Social Security number like privacy information that it is, and you are going to certify that you have completed the training and you understand the criminal penalties may result from non-compliance or intentionally falsifying or misrepresenting any information on the form. And the most applications you can request at one time is 200. All right. We've already talked about this. Now, if a voter wants to self-register, number one, you can give them the form. They can go to any voter registration office. They can also register at the DMV in person or online. And then online, if you have your DMV ID, you can register to vote online and you can complete the entire process online. Why? Because the DMV already has your signature for your driver's license. If you do not have a DMV issued ID, you can complete everything online, but it's going to require that you print it and get it to the appropriate registrar. And then this is what the citizen portal looks like. You can register to vote. You can check your registration status. You can find your election day polling place, or you can apply to vote by mail. All right, I'm not going through that again. All right, we've already done that. And then how will the voter know that they are registered? Well, the registration has to be accepted by the local registrar. And then when their application is accepted, it will appear online if they go to the online portal and they check their registration status. Now, if the application is denied for any reason, the denial notice will be mailed to their mailing address. Any applicant who does not receive either a voter registration or denial notice within 14 days should contact the local registration office, because it should roughly take no more than basically 2 weeks to get the registration through. Now, one of the other things that you might want to let people know about is this handy dandy voter outreach and education guide that gives people all the important dates for an upcoming election. It also has QR codes where they can find their polling place. Um, One of the things that Virginia does not do, that a number of other states do, is Virginia does not produce on its own a listing of all the early voting locations. So that is something that we produce for every election. And then if the voter registration deadline on October 23rd comes and people still have not registered, their option to register and vote in the current election is to register and vote same day during early voting or on election day. Now, in order to register and vote on the same day, voters should bring the proper ID or be prepared to sign an affidavit. If they sign an affidavit, that is going to take longer, and there is a possibility that their provisional ballot may not be counted. So it is much better that people have the proper ID. All right. And I thought I had a slide with what the proper ID was. I may have accidentally moved it. So are there any questions? Because what's next is getting everybody to complete the sworn affidavit so that you can be certified. People are like, no. All right.
Question.
Yes,
Hey,
Lisa.
Lisa. Hey, okay, so my question is, I don't know if this is a silly question, but if like let's say we're at a public place and we're out in public somewhere and we're having some event and we're registering people to vote there, and on the application it says, it has the place for gender, male or female.
Mhm.
Um, what if they just outright tell you, I don't want to declare that, or, I'm transgender, what should I put? How do we handle that? Do they go by what's on their driver's license at DMV, or what's the protocol for that?
Probably the easiest thing to do because they've got the driver's license, and with Help America Vote, they are going to, oh, they're going to look at their driver's license online. Um, Let me take a look at that and see what Virginia is saying they want you to do now, because that is a required field.
Yeah.
They've
Yeah, I
got to
know. I
fill
noticed that. So,
something out. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that is a required field. Let me double check that for you.
Okay.
I have
And
a
that was a great question, Lisa. That was a great
Okay.
question. Yeah,
Good.
yeah. Any other great questions like that?
yes, I wondered if there is some, will this be available printed out or a way to print it out? Because my hand isn't working well and my notes are not all that great.
You will, number one, we are recording this, so there will be a recording and you will get this presentation.
Oh, good.
So
Thanks.
you're gonna have the whole presentation. So yeah, with me telling you the same thing sometimes three times. All right, so I'm an old-fashioned teacher. Repeat, rinse, and repeat. Now repeat a slightly different way. But that was another great question. So yes.
Yeah, thanks for doing that because I feel like there's a lot of details that I don't remember. It's a lot of
Right.
information. So yeah, it's good to have that.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. Anything else? And again, if you think of a question later on, you can always ask it. All right. Okay. Your sworn affidavit. All right. The affidavit is really, 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 really easy. It basically says, Um, are you an individual? You're just doing this on your own? Are you wanting to be affiliated with an organization? Are you staff at a local voter registration office? Or are you staff at elect? So you pick the appropriate one. A number of you are going to be number two, an individual affiliated with an organization. Then they're going to want your name, the organization name, and then they're going to want your address. And notice your email address is required when you complete the certification affidavit. And now on this section, how many voter registration forms do you want? And this is new. Do you want English, Spanish, Korean, Vietnamese? And then at the very bottom, I have completed the training. I understand that my certification expires June 30th, 2027, and that if I want to register voters in 2027 for the general election, or if we have a late primary, then I'm going to be back here taking this course all over again. And then you do the big thing. Applicants will get a receipt. I will return all the completed applications no later than 10 days or by 5 p.m. on the close of registration. I won't mark, add, delete, or make any changes, and I will not copy, duplicate, or distribute any social security number on any application. So help me God. And then there's and I understand that in the event I break any of the rules that I just promised you I was not going to break, um, then criminal penalties may result. And then I swear under penalty of perjury that the foregoing is true. And then the date of your affirmation. And that is it. All right. Now, if you have any questions, you can email info@elections.virginia.gov. In previous years, they always gave us a person. This is the first year where they are not giving us a human, they're giving us a generic email. And then this training, it's really close. I add a bunch of stuff, but this training is available online and it's interactive. They have little tests and you can take tests at virginia.gov registration drives. And then this link will take you to where you can complete the third party voter registration. That's where the Virginia ID is. It got out of order. I knew I had put this in here. It just ended up at the end. And now these are the upcoming elections on November 3rd. They're federal elections. And there is a special election for House of Delegate and District 20. And then we have our 3 constitutional amendments. And then voter registration closes on October 23rd. After that, you can do same day. Early in-person voting is 9/18 through 10/31. And if you want your ballot to be mailed to you, you are going to have to request that by no later than 10/23. All right. And that is it. Yay. All right. What I'm going to do now is let's get out of this. And let me see if yeah, I'm going to check and get that question on what are we doing with gender? Because I'm going, I am not remembering. And let's see. Yes, here they have. Oh, they are not that helpful. Yeah, see, on gender, all they say is applicant must provide their gender. That's all they say. They don't say what they are willing to accept. Ooh, okay. Let me go bother elect about that one because I would have thought there would be more guidance by now on that. They're still being really squishy. All right. I just dropped the link in the chat for you to go and complete your application so that you can become listed on the list of individuals certified to register voters in Virginia. And it takes about a week to get on that list.
So where do I find that?
The link's in the chat.
Oh, okay, in the chat.
I just dropped it in the chat. And then also when you get the PowerPoint presentation, it's in the PowerPoint presentation as well. I know I got a little anal retentive about that. It's on every page where I talk about sworn affidavit. I kept sticking it in there.
I have another question, if that's
Thank
okay.
you.
So if you're out somewhere, you're doing a drive, and people are coming up to you, you have the forms, they look at them and they see the part about the social security number. A lot of people are not comfortable giving that to someone, especially someone who's just there doing a drive. They don't, you're not a government official or anything like that.
They don't
Should
know
we,
you.
yeah, they don't know you. So should we offer them, I mean, would the option be to offer them the option to take it in themselves? Or here's the thing I was wondering is, I mean, obviously that's an option, but what I was wondering is if they check no social security number was ever issued, then it's probably going to reject if once it goes through and they find that they do have a social security number. And then it would just be
It will.
between them
Right.
and the
Right,
election department.
because they have lied on an official application.
Okay, that's a good thing that we could tell
Now
them that.
this,
I mean,
right, yeah, you really don't want to tell them that.
not like that,
what
but yeah.
Right. What I do is I suggest that they might want to register online. And one of the things they do with online registration, like a lot of people, they may not really be able to type. So, it may take them forever to fill it out online. The very last thing they ask for is social security number, and then you click submit. So I have been known to, and people online, and they're like, well, I don't type. Can you type for me? Okay, I'll do the typing. And then I will tell them this requires your entire social security number. I'm going to give you the laptop. You put in your social security number and then you click submit.
Okay,
I've been
that's a
able
good
to
idea.
do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
Another
you.
issue I've found doing drives like that is an awful lot of people don't know their social security number.
Especially college students.
Yes.
I mean, my mother made me learn my social security number when I was 5 years old.
So really all you can do then is either give them the form to fill out and send in or tell them to go do it online. Right? There's not much else you can do.
Right. Yeah. And again, it's the full social. My mother has that. You're 19 years old. Or 49. My mother has that. So when you go on a job interview, what? You bring your mother with you? And again, you can order your forms, and your forms will be mailed to you. Your other option is you can go on the website and you can print the forms. All right. Yeah. So this is another website that I really like. Let me give you the felony conviction and voter eligibility link. That is also in the training. Yeah. And voter eligibility. I mean, it is a very long list where they break it out. Like sodomy was a crime in 1870, but they break it out. Was it with a grandchild? Was it with a child? Was it with someone under the age of 17? They just have all these individual categories. So they've managed to make it quite extensive, but it's very specific. So people will not be confused is their crime something that was part of 1870?
But we still don't know how to register those people, right?
Right. There is still that question. So I will reach out to the Cora and we will have that little chat. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to send you the link to this Canva as opposed to downloading it. And then when I get that information, I will add a new slide. So it will then be in there. So that way I'll be able to update you as I get information. The Cora didn't make our meeting today. So, well, I'll reach out to the Cora and I'll reach out to Richard Walker, who started this whole thing.
So I think a lot of people may not understand this issue, that this is because there was a lawsuit based on what was in the Virginia Code about things could not be added as felony convictions. And that lawsuit was settled earlier this year, which gave a whole bunch of people who have been convicted of felonies that weren't on the books back then, the right to vote again. But they have not worked out a procedure for either informing those people or telling us how we're supposed to get them registered.
Exactly. And so right now, most people are being sent to the clerk of the court in their locality where they reside. And they are working with them to get that crime off the public books.
Did you say the locality where they were tried? Is that what you said?
No, it's the locality where they reside, where
Oh,
they
reside.
live.
Okay.
Yes, yes,
But that's
yes.
still a huge hurdle, right? For many
Yes,
people.
because you can't just fill out a form. Well, there's different forms, and the localities don't have a standard form yet.
But am I understanding this correctly, that only applies to people who were affected by that lawsuit and have a felony conviction? Because there's other people who have felonies and they just need to go and appeal for their restoration of rights.
Right. They just need to fill out a very simple restoration of right form. Frankly, they need to check, have the rights already been restored? Because more than
Yes.
300,000 people from 2009 on have had their rights restored. So people need to first check, am I one of those 300,000? And then if you're not, request to have your rights restored. So again, anyone with a drug crime, there were no drug crimes in 1870. All those people are impacted by this new rule.
So they don't apply to get their rights restored because their rights should already be
Should
restored.
never have been taken in the first place. So
Right.
yeah.
So it's people whose crimes were not on this list who have to apply to get
Right.
their rights restored.
Right. And the other people that may be impacted were the people caught up in the three strikes, three misdemeanors equals a felony. Those folks are also impacted because it may be that their misdemeanor crime, when you look at the list of 1870, it was way below the threshold. That's why they're so specific about if it was theft, then it had to be this amount.
No, it's very confusing.
Yes, yes, yes.
That could almost be like a
There-
whole separate session.
Realistically,
Once we figure out what to do,
Yeah.
right?
Well, why don't I talk to Richard Walker and or the Cora, and maybe it might be good for us to do a special session on this is what you do with expungement.
That would be great.
Because I promise you, it is going to come up. And in certain places, it might come up a lot. Yeah. Bad. 8:21. We're going to be done in an hour and a half. Yay. 90 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You are all very, 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 very welcome. What I am going to do now is I am going to give you the link to the slide presentation. I'm going to drop it in the chat, and then I am going to send this and the link directly to Gail, and then Gail can put out an email. And then I'm going to move that voter ID slide where it belongs. And that's why I was happy to give you the link, because I can go in there and like, hey, that shouldn't have been there. It should have been over there. I'll need to like move that. Do we have any other questions? All right, then we are going to go out. We are going to register some voters. And Virginia is going to have one incredibly fantastic election. Oh, I want to share one more thing. Yes. Make it fast.org/CAVA. This is our new app. If you encounter any problems with elections, right now it is in test mode. So whatever people put in there now, unless you send us a note, wait a minute, this is real, please don't delete this. We're going to throw everything away. We're going to hook up a much more sophisticated map, probably around September 5th. And then this will be ready to go for Virginia. So it's any problem people have voting, we can report it right here on this little app. And what makes this app really special is the app has messaging, so that if the administrator asks a question, you will see the alert and then you can respond. And your response goes to the administrator and everybody else that has the app. So it's really, 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 really cool. And then we have another app. I'm thinking of all these things right now, where this is everything voting. So this is, I need to check my voter registration. I need to register to vote. The early voting list will be on here. This is everything voting in Virginia. So my board member is a retired Google engineer. He builds this stuff for us, so we can give it away for free.
Thank you so much, Andrea.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. And you know what? It really worked out that we did this in August, because on August 3rd, they updated the training.
Awesome. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody. Have a great evening. I am going to stop the recording.